It's no coincidence that you're watching this video right now. God has some truths He wants to reveal to you, and through watching and receiving and hearing His voice, He will transform every part of your life.
Go with me to Matthew chapter 10, if you will. And I think I'll start off in verse, 39 or something. In fact, we can start off in verse 39. Remember I said to you Matthew 10 and Luke 14 is not more or less, it is the same story. It's the same account from two different people. So the angle it's written from is a little different from each one. And that's why it's not verbatim the same. If it was verbatim the same, I would have been worried, because I would have been like, I wonder who copied who there. But that's not the case, so there's a lot of legitimacy to this. Verse 39 says the following, chapter 10, verse 39 of the book of Matthew. The one who has found his life will lose it. And the one who has lost his life on my account, on whose account? On whose account? So if I lose my life, see, there's many people that's lost their lives. They might be breathing, but they lost. They're lost in drugs, they're lost in alcohol, they're lost in abuse, they're lost in all kinds, some maybe even not addiction, but maybe just the cycle that they've placed themselves in because of a bad decision with friends or family or a spouse or whatever it is. They lost themselves. But it wasn't on Jesus' account. You understand? So the losing of self was on their account. It was their bad mistake. It wasn't by choosing Jesus. You follow what I'm saying? So now let's read verse 40, because this is what I want to get to. Now this was just saying the same thing that I referenced from the book of Luke chapter 14. Now verse 40 says the following. Let's read verse 40 here. It says, the one who receives you receives me. Why? Because if you're dead, then who's alive in you? So when I come to you and I share Jesus with you and you don't receive me, see, Jesus had to deal with me on this thing. I just shared it with Kiana before we went out. I said, you're going to know this, that when you deal with people, there'll be rejection. Jesus said this is how it's going to be. But if you don't know how to deal with the rejection, you'll turn it to yourself. Well, if you're dead, number one, then you're probably not dead, or you're just trying to resurrect a dead man. You understand what I'm saying? But so it's not to me. It's to Jesus. Now it's important that we get that, because I'm talking today about two things. One is discipleship, and then we're gonna flow directly into the offices, and I'm going to touch a little bit on that. Amen. The offices, the fivefold ministry, and how that whole thing fits together. Because now I know you're like, how does these two gel up? Just hold on a second. We're going to get to that. I'm going to show you in a second. What happens sometimes with that stuff is some people get so title orientated while they're nothing. It's true though. Yes. There's many people that claim to be an apostle, especially, I'll just say it as it is, especially in the area of apostleship. Yeah. If you're a true apostle, you probably won't go by that title.
Yes, that's right. No need to tell everyone that you are.
Yeah, if I can't see on your life, and I did a series a little over a year ago, I'll do it again. But if you can't see the sign of an apostle in somebody's life, why are you calling them an apostle? If I can't see the sign of an evangelist on your life, why am I calling you an evangelist? Amen. If I can't see the sign of a prophet or a teacher or a pastor on your life, why am I calling you that?
Yes, amen.
And I'll explain all that, probably starting next week, Wednesday. But
comment down below what God just revealed to you. Share this video with somebody that is in need to hear it, as God is sharing with you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow us.
I can just call you brother or sister, and you can be a great disciple and win a whole lot of bunch of people over to Jesus. In fact, you can get all the sick healed without any one of those titles.
Yeah, amen.
But I want to explain, so as much as some people have abused the title because they don't truly know what the definition or the signs are, and they're not truly standing in that office. Now, what do I mean with an office, right? I explained it last week. I'll just say it again. He's a carpenter.
Yes, amen.
Why is he a carpenter? Because that's what he does. He does the work of a carpenter. If I am an evangelist, I should do the work of an evangelist. Does that make sense? So when I do the work of an evangelist, I'm in the office of an evangelist. If I'm not doing that work, I might be called to it, but all that junk is between me and God. It ain't between me and the people. Does it make sense what I'm saying? If I'm called to be a prophet, that's between me and God. But unless I portray the signs of it and I do the work of a prophet, then I'm not in the office of, I might be called to that office, but it doesn't mean I am in it. If he could have done carpentry for 30 years, and he starts another business because he wants to prepare for retirement, let's say, right? Now he's got this great business, but he ain't doing carpentry anymore. And I go to him and I'm like, Gary, what do you do? Who are you? No, I used to be would he say I am a carpenter? No, I used to be a carpenter. In other words, what you do accompanied with the signs of that office is what determines if you're in that office or not. Amen? So I'm not talking about the signs today. I was just trying to explain that concept. But the reason why we need to know these things is because I need to know who I can receive from.
Yes, amen. That's right.
It's about receiving, right? And there's a purpose to it, and we're going to get to that purpose in a second. But let's read this, because I'm not done with it. Verse 40, the one who receives you receives. Now, he's talking to the disciples. He's talking to who? So he's now saying to the disciples, he's not talking to somebody in the fivefold ministry. He's talking to the disciples, saying, the one that receives you. He's sending them out to preach the gospel, right? And he says, if they receive you, they receive me. But he flips it around also, and he says, if they do not receive you, they do not receive me, Jesus. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So we got to get the context there. The one who receives a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward. And the one who receives a righteous man in the name of a righteous person shall receive a righteous person's reward. Is that right? And whoever gives one of these little ones just a cup of cold water to drink in the name of a disciple, to drink in the what? Name of a disciple. So he's talking about the prophet and a righteous man. And then so in other words, he's first talking about somebody in an office. And then he goes, no, even if it's a disciple. Then he says the following, I say to you, he shall by no means lose his reward.
Amen.
Why? Because, like, let's say today, okay, I know I'm a pastor and everything, but let's say I was just some random person, some layman that that's how I started.
Yeah, amen.
That's how I started, right? So now, let's say that's who I was, right? And I was going out in the streets, and let's say I was by myself for that matter. And I ministered to this woman and she received Christ. Do you realize that if I didn't do it, the chances would be almost zero, like maybe 1%, that somebody would ever do that for her in her entire life, statistically speaking. So me bringing Jesus to her is a miracle. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So when he said, if you receive me, if you receive the person, you receive Jesus. That's why you were saying it. Because that's the vessel that brings Jesus to you. But that same context is also true in terms of the offices that minister to who? The church. See, disciples is called for one thing, the world. Disciples are called for the world. Now, I'm a disciple as much as I'm a pastor. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm two at the same time. But I'm also called a pastor. In other words, I'm also called to watch over God's flock and teach them, and help them, grow spiritually and all those kind of things, and a bunch of other stuff as well. But you follow what I'm saying? So it's two things. But disciples are called for the world. So just get that.